KahnawakeTV Sky-Deer. Welcome for tuning in. This is the Grand Chief or Ohén Ratitsénhaienhs update. So I try to do these every couple of months to keep the community abreast of everything going on at the MCK and more specifically in my files. So I just recently left K103, did the noon hour talk show. Today is the 22nd of March. But maybe I'll start with, since the last time I did one of these, the hot topic at the time was about the format of community meetings and about looking at implementing some kind of guidelines. So just wanted to say nyawa to the community. The last community meeting, I wasn't present, I was on vacation, but I heard, that it went very well. Obviously, it dominated the fuel spill issue, dominated the conversation being had by the community at that time. Lots of fears, obviously, but in terms of how we responded, immediately implementing a crisis response team, making sure that we had representatives on the ground, ensuring the school Gadiwanoru had air quality monitoring, the homes in the area, testing constantly. So I just want to commend and say hats off to the team that was deployed. And obviously internally, we made sure that any kind of resources and funding that was necessary to ensure the security and safety of the community during this time as we went through, everything that we had to do, which was a lot. And all of the departments that have been involved, including EHS from KSCS, our environment office, public safety, all of those who volunteered to fill the sandbags and monitoring of the dam. So just, nyawa to everybody. I think, again, that's how our community responds. I mean, this isn't something that was of our doing. And obviously, we had to respond and ensure that, we're taking care of the environment and the Suzanne River. Immediate correspondence with the mayor of Chateauguay, with even the premier was in Chateauguay on March 1st. So just having the dialogue and ensuring that, resources, if necessary, financial or otherwise, from the Quebec government as well as their environment ministry would be on the ground doing the cleanup on their end, and as well as helping, as we proceed with everything that's going to happen on our end. I know the team's been doing some Facebook Lives, keeping the community abreast of everything going on. So, really important. So, keep tabs on that, and just wanted to say nyawa. So also at that recent meeting with the Premier, we discussed a number of issues. We only had 30 minutes to meet, and I felt that the exhaustive list of 10 items that he put forth was obviously not enough time. You might have heard me in the past talk about the necessity for us to have a relationship framework with Quebec, because it sets out, all of the areas that we want to be addressing, as well as maybe getting myself an annual meeting with the Premier. So, we mentioned that. He brought up the fact that they know that the Quebec government still owes Kahnawake an outstanding 211 acres of land from the Highway 30. And that's not to be confused, obviously, with the seigneury and our land grievance with all of that lands that have been lost. But, specifically, if they could identify lands that could be returned to the community that is contiguous to Kahnawake proper at current, or even Joworodu, he assured me that that is being looked at. So hopefully, at some point in the near future, we will be able to get this relationship with the Quebec government on track, I'll say. There's definitely been, a lot of sore points in the last couple of years in this term. Obviously, Bill 96, which turned into Law 14, and the language issue, the one about the child care. So, we're constantly trying to, raise awareness to our perspective as it pertains to our rights and our issues and our jurisdiction here in Kahnawake. And we need to have those tables to address issues with the province. Same thing with the federal government. As a part of our political priorities that we established at the beginning of the term, it was definitely on my to-do list to make sure that we got these MOUs, which is a Memorandum of Understanding, or a relationship framework, on track with the different external bodies that we deal with, federal government, provincial government, even the municipalities, which we recently also signed a document there that creates technical tables so that we could establish information sharing where there's something that happens on a municipal level close to us with our neighboring communities, the potential impacts to Kahnawake and how we can, be able to sit down and mitigate through. And a perfect example is the one that just happened with Shargi with the industrial fuel spill. So that is on track. I think notice will be going out to the community about that and what that entails to just have with the MRC, the Roussillon, all of the mayors, this technical table, looking to sign a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the federal government, as represented now by a new minister, Gary Anandasangri, who replaced Minister Mark Miller. So that should be forthcoming in the next, I'll say, 2 weeks. It really helps to establish how the Kahnawake-Canada Relations Table functions, who are the representatives, what are the items that we're going to be addressing. And we have a list, it entails all of the different things when you think about in our community, land, the membership issue or who gets registered to Kahnawake 0700, as well environment, justice, child services, gaming, and any other issue that we feel, that we're going to exercise our self-determination. And it's basically just, putting the federal government on notice a lot of times of the things that we're going to be doing in the community for us. So there's a lot of exciting things in the works. Even from an ECDev perspective, I'm on that portfolio as well. That we recently were selected for a new wind energy project, a wind turbine project. We already had the previous one, the Culture. So, looking to create revenue generation for the community. There's probably going to be some other interesting announcements in the next little while. Obviously, you might have seen that we went and closed the Toronto Stock Exchange with the announcement of the Kahnawake Sovereign Wealth Fund, taking that money where we sold our shares in Continent 8 and instead of deploying it into the community, setting aside that nest egg and looking at projects and things that we could invest in that will create long-term generational wealth for the community, looking not to touch it for the next 10 years. And then hopefully we have this war chest of money to deploy into anything we feel is important in the evolution of Kahnawake. And, I just keep saying and reiterating how lucky we are to have the things that we do have in the community. We're coming up on the 40-year anniversary of the signing of the hospital agreement. And you wouldn't believe back then, 40 years ago, people were very concerned and worried. Some of the same things I hear, it's bringing in outside jurisdiction. It's going to have an impact on our rights. But you know what? We have a hospital here in the community that people can access, to see the clinic for the babies, especially, during the time of when we're losing our loved ones, the family room and, it being right here in our backyard. I think a lot of First Nations would love to have that. We took the risk creating a nation-to-nation relation at the time with the government of the day back then, as represented by René Lévesque. So, it set the stage for, some of the agreements in the future. Think about the policing agreement. People were very angry. There was protests outside the MCK, but flash forward today, we have our own all First Nation police force that helps to protect our community, our safety and security. So, a lot of times I hear that, there's some misinformation that gets perpetuated out there, that we're municipalizing or that we're bringing in taxation or we're doing all these kinds of things with signing agreements or doing these MOUs or relationship frameworks. But really, think about it. Everybody who's on the council, we're from here, we live here, all our families, our friends, we grew up here. We would never do anything to the detriment of our people. We're always trying to fight for and advancing our jurisdiction, fighting for our rights, ensuring we get more resources, more funding to you know, to do what's important for the community. And we're growing, we're evolving, we're changing. You know, there's so many more people now, and the demands and the needs are ever changing, and we have to ensure that we're always generating revenue so that we can deploy it into the things that we want to do, because we don't always get enough funding from the federal government to do the things that are important for us in the community. When we say self-determination and, you know, taking control of our affairs, that's why we're doing these things. So, you know, whether your opinion is council has no business in business, you know, this is where things are at, and we need to ensure that we're taking care of the community for the long run. So I'm just trying to see if there's any other major things that I should let you guys know, but I think the other Ratitsénhaienhs, you know, who are doing these weekly updates and updating on their portfolios and some of the work that is ongoing. You know, we recently had election law hearing, and it got passed. So those amendments will go into effect for this upcoming election. Same thing with the animal control law. You know, that was something that was really outstanding for a long time to get those amendments. And that's your process, Kahnawake. You asked to have more input in the direction and have say in where we're, the future of where we're going. And our legislation is super important. I know that there's been, I guess, some feedback or some clapback with regard to the announcement of the preliminary list of persons who applied to get cannabis retail permits. You know, I've seen, you know, people saying, well, did they ask the community? There was so much engagement and consultation at the time and surveys. You know, and I think we did it the right way. A moratorium immediately so that we could put into place our law and our regulations, because I'd rather see an industry that is regulated and takes into account the health and safety of the community first and foremost, and, you know, that it's regulated. It's done in a way that, you know, there's rules and order into the way it's going to be done. And my understanding is a draft lottery. I think 4 permits are going to be given out. So that exhaustive list that was put out is for you to provide any kind of comment or feedback on the persons and the locations of where they want to have cannabis retail stores. So again, it's at your discretion to voice your concern. But I think at this point, you know, regulating the industry instead of not doing anything wouldn't have been the right decision for Kahnawake. So with that, I think I took enough of your time. Thank you for listening in, and obviously more to come, and we'll see you again next time. So Tony Wanige Nyawakoa.